Hey, it's Nikki. If you're tuning into this podcast, chances are high that you experience at least occasional moments of overwhelm, resistance, lack of inspiration, and general WTF, can I even do this moments. Yes? Well, I made something for you. It's called the Naptime Empire Survival Guide, an email and audio series specifically curated to help you shift out of overwhelm, comparison, hiding in the bathroom, and back into inspired aligned action. We're talking unfiltered stories and insights from entrepreneurial moms who get this life, plus tried and tested tools to use when your brain is full, your energy's drained, and you could use some help getting your spark back. It's all delivered right to your inbox, organized neatly in emails that you can store up for a rainy day and come back to as often as you need to. As a fun bonus, you'll also get an invite to join my private Facebook community so you can get behind the scenes scoop on the Naptime Empire's book and first dibs on my most recent offers as they come to life. Visit naptimeempires.com/guide to secure your copy, and I'll meet you in your inbox. All right, now back to the episode.
You're listening to the Naptime Empires podcast with my mom, Nikki Elledge Brown. Mom, your show's on.
Thanks, bud. I got it from here. Welcome to the Naptime Empires podcast, refreshingly honest conversations on the realities of parenthood and entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Nikki Elledge Brown. Let's get started. Gena Jaffe is a mom to 2 reciprocal IVF babies, wife to her wife Jordana, and serial entrepreneur. She was a corporate lawyer in New York City until she started her own law practice in January 2014. She then started a mama blog after the birth of her son Parker, and 2 years ago became a fitness and wellness coach after being a nationally competitive gymnast for 15 years. Of all the things she's done and all the awards she's won, Mommy is her very favorite title of all. In this conversation, we talk about what sparked Jena's shift from the traditional corporate attorney route to becoming an entrepreneur on her own terms, how she and Jordana tag team working and parenting from home, their experiences with reciprocal IVF, what it was like delivering during the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic, her experience with postpartum anxiety. We talk about what helped her, plus we get some great ideas for supporting loved ones who are also going through it. We're all going to know somebody. If it's not us, somebody we know could benefit from these tips. And then also how she shifted her approach to business in the early months and years of motherhood, and a super smart strategy for being of service without actually taking on new clients. This was such a great idea. Hope you enjoy. All right, Jenna, let's do this. We have so many. I just was reading through your bio and taking all of these notes of things that I want to make sure to ask about. The first thing, welcome. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. But I wanted to ask, just as we set up the conversation, just to set the current snapshot and frame of reference of your balance of, and I say balance, but I mean like your mix of family and business over there. So currently in this moment, as we're recording, it's July 2020. You have 2 kiddos. Tell me about like the setup over there in your family, in your home, and your business.
Oh man. Well, Josie is she's 12 weeks today.
Aww.
So we've got a baby, and Parker is 3.5. So, they both are still require a lot of hands-on attention. And since there's no summer camp this summer, he's home with us full time. So, Jordana, my wife, works from home as well. We have our own businesses. So we kind of take turns,
Yep.
Who's on parent duty, who's on working duty. Obviously with now 2 kids, it's kind of a tag team effort sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm nursing. So, I am breastfeeding all the time. She's still, eating all the time. So Jordana has really taken a lead on business staff, where I've taken a little bit of a step back, just having the baby and nursing and recovering and basking in the newborn, all that good stuff. So right now I'm in the nursery, which was our office. So right now there's still a desk, but no crib.
Yeah.
Josie sleeps next to us anyway. So
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so business-wise, did Jordana have a business before you started your law practice? So you were in corporate law and then you started your own in 2014. Like when did that come together?
Yeah. Well, Jordana's been an entrepreneur for 13 years. Like,
oh, okay.
She's always been an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And then for me, when I met her, I was a corporate lawyer in New York City. Jordana had said to me, have you ever thought about having your own business? And I was like, no, absolutely not. For me, I really thrive on structure and security and stability. And even though I was miserable, you're comfortable with what you know. And for me, it was like, my parents were hardworking blue collar people, and you work until you can live off your 401k. And so I was like, okay, well, that's my life. That's what I got. Maybe I'll make enough that I can retire earlier than my parents could. But as I was dating Jordana, I saw the incredible impact that she was having on other women's lives. And then I got to meet so many other women entrepreneurs in New York City and see the impact that they were making on other people. And like, I'd never heard of a life coach before. And I was like, or a business coach or like a health coach. I'm like, what are those people doing? I was like, literally when I met Jordana, she was a business coach. And I was like, who's hiring you? Like, what are you? So, as I was meeting these other women and just kind of getting to know her industry, I saw a huge need for an attorney to help these women, right? Like back then, 6 years ago, there really weren't a lot of people doing what I do, like as a lawyer for entrepreneurs, like very, very few. So I was like, wow, there's like such a hole, and a need for what I have to offer and what I already do, let's just go for it. And we started dating and I met her in June. By January, I had started my own law practice, like just took this leap of faith. And it has been a roller coaster, a lot of ups, a lot of downs. But ultimately, like now that I have children, like I cannot even fathom leaving them every day to go work at an office.
Yeah. And it's of course, a valid choice, 100%, but the lifestyle is so different. And it's interesting because just before we started recording, we were talking about pandemic and quarantine time and how we've shifted like our wake up times to 2 hours later. And it's just interesting in this moment in history of how people can make it work when, especially like, talking about school and kids going back to school and is it going to be part-time, full-time? It's like, there's so many parents right now who that was their rhythm, that was their flow to be getting up. Okay, everybody ready, dressed, you go to school and I'm going to the office. And now that has shifted so much. So it does make me extra thankful that we do have the flexibility. Of course, there are benefits and drawbacks to it, but like having the flexibility, like that's such a huge thing. So, okay. And then both of the babies came through the miracle of reciprocal IVF. So I was going to talk or ask you about what was that process like when y'all decided, okay, it's time and we're going to start this process. How did that affect business stuff? Like what were the shifts that you made, if any, and until you were actually pregnant? I mean, obviously that's a huge thing to be going through.
Yeah. It didn't really going through the process didn't affect business so much as pregnancy did. And newborn life. But I mean, in terms of IVF, like it requires a lot of doctor's appointments. So it was nice that I didn't have to ask for time off. I didn't have to, because at one point when you're going through an egg retrieval, so doing like the stimulation of your eggs so that you can extract them to fertilize them, you're going to the fertility clinic like every other day for like a good 2-week period. And, you need an ultrasound and you need blood work and all of that. And so if we had to ask for time off for that, like I have friends who have actual jobs and they'd have to go in late every day, that I can't imagine how that would have been, especially as a lawyer, like to have to ask for that, or like to not, or if you don't want to share that with people that you're going through that process, because it can be a very personal and very private experience.
Yeah.
So I was, extra grateful that that's not something that we had to worry about. And then on top of that, it's a very expensive process. So, just grateful that we had the finances to do that and that we could say, okay, you know what, this is another $20,000 this month. Let's work a little harder. That we weren't stuck at a capped salary where, you know, we had to kind of budget for that experience. So yeah.
And then when you got pregnant with Parker, what was that like in terms of like, I'm just feeling so thankful. I got sick just because I was overheated last week, and I was just feeling so thankful that I'm like, that was it. Like, it's kind of one per pregnancy where I actually get sick. And I'm so thankful that I'm one of those ridiculously lucky people who it's just, you know, I might have felt a little crummy in the first trimester and like extra sleepy, but I'm like, oh my gosh, so many people have it so much harder. So what was it like for you, and how, were you still able to work? And that goes for both, for either or both, or were they comparable pregnancies?
Yeah, I was one of those people.
Yeah.
With Parker, I was sick. So I was very nauseous, very exhausted. I remember sleeping my first trimester, sleeping like 14, 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
And like being so grateful that I didn't have to get up and go to work, and that I could also nap in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And I would literally work probably from 4 to 10.
Yeah.
Like that. Like besides that, I was like sleeping, I was taking care of myself, I was exercising. And then it was just a whole lot of sleeping.
Yeah.
With Josie, I was deathly sick. Like so violently sick my first trimester. I was on 2 different nausea meds, and completely non-functional the entire first trimester.
Sheesh.
So I wasn't working at all, really.
Yeah.
Fortunately, you know, the wellness business that we run together, Jordana could really take the lead on that.
Yeah.
In terms of legal stuff, I was just sleeping.
Yeah.
But, you know, and then also like to have a toddler the second time.
Right. It's different. You can't just take a nap like you can the first round. That's for sure.
Oh my gosh. So different. I mean, like, thank goodness again that Jordana's home with me, that in the afternoons I could nap.
Yeah.
And Parker was in school last year, you know, for part of the year. So when he was in school, I would nap for a few hours. I would work, you know, like maybe 2 hours if he was in school. But it involved, I would literally go to bed when he went to bed at like 8:30. Like I was just, so again, I don't know how I would have functioned at a corporate job. Like, I don't know how women do it. Like, if, you know, anyone here is working and pregnant and like, you guys are superheroes. I really don't know how people do it. So I had pretty awful pregnancies, and then second trimester was pretty good for both of them. And then at the end, just a lot of pain. I'm very tiny, and I had big babies. So, you know, I had so much back pain. You know, there was a lot of couch time.
Right. Which is like divine design to prep. Like, you're so uncomfortable that you welcome the next version of discomfort in the fourth trimester, because it's like, all right, fine. I'll just switch. Let's just trade. It'll be fine. Or when you're waking up to pee 3 times in the middle of the night. So how did having Parker shift business for you? Like, once he was here. So I started my business and Bryson was already 18 months, but when I had Deacon 4.5 years ago, that was my first experience with like going through pregnancy, labor, delivery, postpartum, all of that while the business already existed. So for you, you had the business first and then you had him. So what was that like? How did it shift things?
So when I was pregnant with Parker, I was still doing launches and stuff like that. So I had obviously planned my launches out around pregnancy and delivery. So I had Parker in January, and I had a launch that we did in the fall. And then I had planned another launch for that following, I think, May. So I was still doing some work after I had him, but I wasn't doing any big launches for a few months. Yeah. I was also promoting a few other programs. So I had scheduled out all of my emails and everything to go out, you know, January, February, so that was already set up. I can't say that I ever took like a full X amount of time off, because, you know, you can check your email on your phone,
right?
And, you know, and babies sleep so much that you end up having a little more time than you realize. And it's funny because now that I have two, I'm like, what was I thinking having one, thinking that I had my hands full? Like, you know, because you realize
it's incremental. It's incremental.
Right. Well, it's funny because like Josie just sleeps so much that I'm like, oh my goodness, if I only had her right now, like I would be the most productive human ever. Parker's 3.5, but he doesn't nap anymore. So,
right.
you know, you're just constantly on the go. So I think that for me, the biggest thing having a baby was about prioritizing time and really like having a schedule of sorts, you know, just being productive, making sure that I got work done, you know, during nap time. Obviously, this is Naptime Empires. You know, nap time was, you know, you get this solid block of time where you could really sit down and focus and know that you were going to get hopefully an hour to, you know, 2.5 hours of work done. And then I'm very productive at night. So for me, it was also like after bedtime.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like sleepy empires for me, you know, when exactly, you know, just saying, okay, like I had to be okay with not getting things done before like 8 p.m. sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, there's just so much that you can't predict. And I had to learn to be okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's probably one of the biggest causes of stress is when we have unrealistic expectations of what we can do, especially if we are home with the kiddos, whether you do have your partner home or you're solo parenting. It's like just being able to take a real good, honest look at like, here's what the situation is right now for this season in this moment. And then once you've got a few days or weeks of that under your belt, you can really realize like, okay, yeah, this is just not going to happen until afterwards. Yeah. And then of course, if somebody has a fever or like in those other exceptional cases, even bedtime isn't so predictable or nap time is thrown off for a little bit, but then it catches back into whatever the new rhythm is, and working with that rather than fighting it is a key. That's one of the things where I'm like, if we could just lower the bar, just low enough to get a grip, you know, like just low enough to get a grip. And then, cause otherwise we're always just looking at it and just like mad, like, no, but that's not how it's, well, but that is how it is right now in this moment. And that's okay.
Yes. I love that. I love that. It's like, that's how it is now, but it's not forever.
Right. And it feels like forever, especially when it's the first time, right? Like I'm sure these 12 weeks, you had such a different perspective because you've been through those 12 weeks before with Parker and you're like, oh gosh, in the moment, it feels like they're going to be teeny tiny newborns forever. And then the next thing you know, you're changing their clothes out of the 3 month to the 6 month. And it's like, what?
I know we've been putting some of her stuff away and it's like, oh my gosh.
So on that note, because I have seen lots of cute clothes tagged on your Instagram account, when and how did the mom blogging piece start? And how did that start? And how does that work? And what are you loving about it? Tell me the deal.
So I decided to start when I think it was right after. It was either right after Parker or when I was pregnant with Parker. I was probably right after I had him. And I just, for me, like being a mom and like having my kids is like my greatest joy. And I think my greatest accomplishment ever. And I just am very passionate about talking about it, about fertility and pregnancy and motherhood and toddlerhood and the craziness that it is and how hard it is and how wonderful it is. And, you know, all of that. And so writing has always been very cathartic for me. And so I wanted to just start writing about it. And I wanted to share about our fertility journey. And I wanted to share about postpartum depression and mental health in general. And what are my favorite mom, you know, and baby items and stuff like that. Like, how can I help somebody else who might be going through what I'm going through or what I went through? And again, it was healing for me to write that. Yeah. So I said, you know, I'm going to start a blog, and I'm not consistent about it. I'm trying to get a little more consistent at this point. But it was just a way to get my experiences out on paper and heal some parts of what I've been through. And hopefully others can kind of relate, because I did have really bad postpartum anxiety after Parker, and I had never even heard of postpartum anxiety. I'd only known about postpartum depression.
Yeah. So let's pause there. And what did that look like for you? And how did it show up to where you recognized, okay, this is a thing, you know, this isn't necessarily how I have to be feeling right now, or accept exactly how this is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think in the beginning, your hormones are just everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think you don't know what to expect after.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to realize that it wasn't quote unquote normal what I was going through. It got to the point where I couldn't really leave Parker, and I would be paranoid constantly, just like constantly worrying about everything. If he got a tiny little bump, I would start crying. Fell off the bed, and he was totally fine. I had a full blown panic attack. And I'd never experienced that before. And Jordana would say to me, hey, like, let me take him. Like, I'll take him. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I got him. Like, I wouldn't let people help. And I broke down at probably like 6 or 7 weeks postpartum. I was just beyond exhausted, and then I was trying to do everything by myself. Yeah. And not because other people weren't trying to help. I was just not taking it. Yeah. And I just had a full on breakdown. And I had another friend who had a baby 2 days after me, and we would talk a lot, and she was very anxious as well. So I thought it was normal for a while. Mm-hmm. And then I think that when I had that panic attack, I was like, this is not okay. Like, I am not okay right now. And so I talked to my therapist. I had a life coach at the time, and I upped my medicine. I talked to Parker's pediatrician and my doctor, and just about my experience and what I was going through. And they were like, this isn't just normal baby blues, So, it was hard. It was really, really hard. And since I knew that I was prone to that, I was very proactive this go around of like having some tools in place before delivery to make sure that I would be okay.
Yeah. So what were some of those tools? And then also, what was the best way for your friends and family to support you in that time? Because if it's not something we're experiencing firsthand, chances are very high that somebody that we know and love is going to experience some level of postpartum anxiety or depression. So what was helpful to you then? And then what was helpful to you this round, just in preparing to know that it might happen again?
Yep. So I think that just having people, come do your laundry. Yeah. Change the sheets on your bed, cook some meals, like just have some meals prepared for you. If you can allow them to watch the baby and go take a nap for an hour. Mm-hmm. Again, that was hard for me to not be fully 100% present. Like I felt that I, as a mom, needed to do everything, and like you feel like you should be able to. So if you can, and I highly encourage, take people up on that nap, take people up on that. My therapist actually gave me homework assignments of leaving the house without Parker, even if it was to go for a walk or literally she would tell me, go to Starbucks and get a coffee, like by yourself, go get your nails done, do something just you. And then also do things with Jordana because you're not just a mom. Yeah. Because it just took me over. This time, so I did placenta encapsulation with Parker, and that helped tremendously. And the reason I know it helps is because after delivery, I started taking 1 pill a day. When I realized I was struggling, I opted to 3, and I noticed a really big change in my mood and in my energy. So I did that again with Josie. I planned that ahead of time. I, spoke with my psychiatrist, and right before I delivered Josie, I upped my medicine. So I'm on Zoloft, so my antidepressants, and I upped it 2 days before delivery. I was induced. So I was like, okay, I'm going to up it today. And I've kept up on that dose. I knew that some days I was going to need to take more of the placenta pills than others. So I was aware of that. This time, I'm very able to ask for help. Yeah. I know that I can't do it by myself. My parents, thank God, have been so extremely helpful. And with a pandemic was definitely a very interesting time to have a baby. But my parents were both not working, and we have just seen them since the beginning. So we kind of quote unquote quarantined with them.
Right.
So
in your social bubble, grandparents
they are
knew that.
exactly, they made it because we had already been seeing them every day and they weren't working.
Yeah.
So they every afternoon for 3 months took Parker for a few hours.
Oh,
And I would sleep. So Josie would go down and then I would sleep every afternoon for like the first 8 weeks. I was like, I know I need this.
yeah.
And then again, very willing to ask for help. So in the middle of the night, I would wake up Jordana and be like, can you put her back down so that I can just go back to sleep? Like after I would feed her. Before I used to think I can do it. I should be able to do it. I'm fine. Like, let's let her sleep. Like, no, I was like, no.
That's very kind of you. I am so petty. I'm like, no, especially now that he doesn't have like the day job with the Navy to go to this time, or he was like deployed. He left when when Deacon was like 3 weeks old, he left for another like 2.5 month half deployment, basically like met a boat that was already out in the ocean. So I'm like, oh no, I'm taking full advantage.
No, you know what? I don't know how you did that all by yourself. I would too. Oh my gosh. Right? But then also I think showering every day, like that is, it's so funny how something so simple is like the most joyous, wonderous experience after you have a child.
Right.
That I was like, okay, every day I'm just going to at least just go in and rinse off and have like a little bit of quiet time and a little bit of self-care and all of that. Those are kind of and then I knew that I wanted to get back into like a workout routine. For me, fitness has always been a mental health saver. Yeah. So I knew that I wanted to get back into that as quickly as possible. I had some postpartum delivery issues, so I haven't been able to work out a ton. But, just knowing ahead of time, like what helps me and what I need and being willing to ask for it, I think it's been completely different. It's been a game changer. This experience has been so different. Thank God.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. Because again, if someone's listening and it's their first time going through this, then these are all just valuable nuggets to think about, because it's easy to think about, okay, we need diapers and wipes and we need a place for baby to sleep and we need a car seat or a stroller, blah, blah, blah. And it's also easy to think on the business side about what you want to prepare and get those emails ready or have the podcast recorded, but not as many people are thinking about or talking about what do you as an individual need to be able to be prepared to weather this, like, not to compare it to a hurricane, but like a hurricane preparedness kit, like an emergency kit, because you just don't know. Like, even for me, this is the third baby, but I don't know. I've never had this baby before. I've never had a baby at age 35. I've never in this moment and season of life. So you just don't know. So it's a beautiful thing to just know your options, know different ways it could go, and then be prepared accordingly. So that it's not like, I didn't even know this could happen, And
I think that like one thing is that people have said to me that made so much more sense, because I think when you're a mom, you become very selfless. And you kind of, at least for me, I like put my kids first, but like to my detriment sometimes.
Yeah.
But what people have said to me is that if you're not okay, your kids are not okay. And so if you can, and for me, like thinking of it that way, I was like, oh shoot, like I need to take care of me, or I'm not going to be the best mom for my kids. 100%. Or if I don't take care of me, my business could fall apart.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's the proverbial oxygen mask. Cause I know I'm like, okay, well, I'll be a grouchy a-hole. And that was the one thing that for sure with, Bryson was 4. Yeah. He had just turned 4. So I had Bryson that needed to get to preschool. And I was so thankful that he could go to preschool. Like, he went just mornings for 3 days, and then he would stay through the afternoon on 2 days. And then I'd come back home with Deaky, and sometimes we would just fall asleep or whatever. But I did have like a neighbor and a friend who would alternate that. A few mornings a week, I would have one of them over, and it would literally just be sometimes so that I could sleep, like just loving, capable adult hands that could hang out and play with him or just listen for him or whatever. And it was like the most profitable priority was literally to take a nap, because I knew come time to pick up Bryson and then get the whole dinner time, bath time, bedtime routine, like I was going to be good for nothing if I was completely exhausted. So it was worth the extra like $15 for the hour or $30 or whatever to be able to just have those extra hands. It'll be also very interesting. This is our first time having a baby here in our village, like where my parents and my sisters are just a short drive away. So that'll be an interesting thing too. But I'm so grateful that you did have your parents there, that they could be available too. And I just also want to rewind. What was it like for you? Like, how did your birth experience with Josie, did that shift, and was like, were you planning to probably have your mom with you in addition to having Jordana there? Like, what was that like for you, and how did things shift when it was pandemic time, or was it not really that big of a difference?
So with Parker, my mom was there, and with Jordana, and I had a very traumatic delivery with Parker.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of, my mom like still has PTSD from it.
Oh no.
So she didn't, I think if I wanted her there, she gladly would have, but I don't know if she wanted to experience that again.
Yeah.
I didn't want to experience that again.
Right.
So actually up until a week and a half before I delivered, we planned on a C-section because I had a very traumatic delivery with Parker. He got stuck. There was a vacuum. A nurse had to jump on me to get him out. Like it was 3.5 hours of pushing. It was bad.
Yeah.
Not common, but not good.
Yeah.
So my doctor had said, you're never doing that again. Like that was terrible. You're going to have C-sections moving forward. So literally until I was 35 weeks pregnant, C-section planned, scheduled. Halfway through my pregnancy, I had to switch OB practices because mine dismantled. So switch practices. I was like, this is what happened. We're doing a C-section. At my like 35 week appointment or whatever, she said, just so you know that like, if you get to the hospital and you're like 9 centimeters, we're going to encourage you to push. And I was like, okay, like great. And then every subsequent appointment, they were like, have you considered a vaginal delivery? And I was like, why are we talking about this at this point? You know what I mean? I thought I went into early labor. I was like contracting every 3 minutes for an hour plus. So I went into triage at 37 weeks and they were like, have you considered a vaginal delivery? And, I was like, no, but like, talk to me, like, why?
Yeah.
And they went through the whole, it's better for you and the baby. It's an easier recovery, blah, 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 whatever. So because Josie was a girl, they have a different body shape. So the likelihood yes.
I didn't know this.
Yeah. So they said to me, so Parker got stuck. It's called shoulder dystocia. His shoulder got stuck in my pelvis.
Mm-hmm.
It could be based on my anatomy, but we don't know. But they said that girls' structures are a little bit different. And because I was earlier at that point, Parker was overdue, she'd be a little smaller. So like, would you consider it? So I was like, sure. If I'm in labor right now, like, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, they sent me home. I was 1 centimeter. And so at my next appointment, my doctor, who is actually somebody that I know, she had come from my other practice, was like, let's talk about a vaginal delivery. And now she was with my other practice, so she knew everything that had happened before.
Yeah.
And after just kind of talking to her about it and like thinking and feeling through it all, I said, okay, let's go for it. But I want to be induced at 39 weeks. So I was supposed to have a C-section on April 8th. And I said, if you will induce me on April 8th, I will try. Because then she'd be smaller, right?
Right. You're like, we're not going full on here.
Exactly.
Like, there's a limit to how big we're growing. Yeah.
For sure. And she was already measuring, like, so Parker was 8'7". She was already measuring like on track with him. And I'm not even 5'1". So like I'm tiny, big babies. Right. So she said, let me talk to the doctor who's on call that day, because it's up to her to approve it. And she did. And the doctor said yes. So really I had like not even 10 days to entirely change my birth plan.
Yeah.
My mom wasn't allowed there anyway.
Yeah.
And so it was a very different experience in terms of it being a pandemic. But once you're in that room and once you're in labor, you don't realize it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like, they were masked and they probably wouldn't have been. You know, I don't know, maybe my nurse wouldn't have been. I don't remember.
Right.
The only now and just as an aside, like it was a very beautiful and wonderful birthing experience that time. Thank God. The difference was after. It was very notable that there was a pandemic after. I could see into COVID ICU units.
Oh, wow.
From my room with the shields and the gowns and it was very like alien creepy.
Right.
And everyone coming in masked and gloved and hair, head things on and, no visitors at all were allowed.
Right.
Which in some ways was kind of nice to just be the three of us.
Yeah.
For that time when we knew we were going to come home into chaos.
Right.
The toddler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing that again, selfishly, because I'm like, this, I don't even know when this podcast conversation is going to be airing. It might even be already after I've delivered, but I'm like, yeah, our hospital policy currently is one named visitor. So that'll be Jeremy, dad. And then, you can have a paid professional doula. So I'm like talking to different doulas because my mom's like, no, but you're finally here. She was there for Deke. She just missed Bryson because he came early. She had originally planned to come on the day that he actually ended up coming at 37 and a half weeks. But, but again, like they'll be able to be here afterwards for all of those early days and weeks. So I love hearing that because it's like, it's a nice thing to just have that baby bubble. And I do remember the first night with Bryson where, again, originally my parents were going to be there, but then we were like, no, hang on. It's our anniversary. It's our last anniversary without a baby. Yeah, right. It wasn't, but I'll never forget those moments of just waking up and seeing him, like holding him and thinking, oh my gosh, there he is, or like feeling him breathe on my cheek and just knowing like that's just our little, exactly, until you come home and then it's like big brother, we'll have two big brothers, and then we figure out our new normal and new transition. Okay. So all of these things considered, how would you say being a mom has shifted you and how you show up in your business? Obviously it has shifted because you did start the blog and then you've got different brand partnerships and things related to this journey and this part and this season. But how do you think it has shifted you as an entrepreneur in all the ways, like as a lawyer, even in just how you, what you care about and how you're showing up?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a completely different person.
Yeah.
It has made me be much less of a perfectionist. Like I was so type A and now, no, like I'm not.
Yeah.
Like done is better than perfect. And, you just have to be okay with you're going to make some small errors. I'm going to send newsletters with typos and I'm going to, have messy. Like I said to you before that I'm so glad this is an audio because I just, I have messy bun and, it just spit up on my sweatshirt and, it's really just about caring less about the insignificant things.
Yeah.
And it really is about focused productivity and prioritizing. I say no a lot more now. Yeah. Because I have to. And it's good for me though, because I used to be like a people pleaser and say yes to everything, even if I didn't want to do something or if it was just not to my benefit. And I don't anymore. And I think that that's amazing. My mom always said that you grow such a backbone as a mom, becoming a mother. And it's so true because you really do need to look out for you and your kids and make sure that you are taking the time away from them that is going to benefit them.
Yeah. And you have new people to please at a much deeper level. Of course, not that we can control. Like, it's not like when people are saying, I just want you to be happy. Well, that's also an unrealistic expectation for our kids. They're going to have all the feelings and that's okay. Yeah. And we can't control it and we can't be over responsible for them. But I'm feeling that even I was sharing with one of my buddies in Boxer the other day. I'm like, I'm just really feeling that like, okay, I'm increasing my capacity to hold space for these people, literally. And so I'm just getting a lot pickier about what are the touch points that I want to be sharing out in the world and who do I want to be serving deeper. And it's really just like, I'm just craving the inner circle that I already know, love, and trust of friends, clients, and of course, kiddos. and partner and just going
Yeah.
deeper rather than wider, at least in this season. And that may be completely different this time next year. But for now, it's like, these are the people, these are my people. And obviously very intentionally and grateful that we were able to bring them into the world, but it was definitely by no accident. I mean, your babies are so wanted and so loved and everything that y'all went through to bring them here, that it's like, okay, this is a time. And they do grow so fast.
They go so fast that it's, I've been the past 12 weeks working so very minimally because I know how fast this time goes. That is what is so important to me. And, I show up for the people I need to show up for. And I say no to a lot of other things, and I refer a lot of business out actually, because it's
a beautiful thing. Yeah. And that'll come back to you eventually. It surely will.
Yeah. I want to be with my babies, and I want to spend time with them. And, I know that at this moment in time that these people would be better served by somebody else who can give them a lot more attention. And yeah.
That's actually a really great point. And I'm going to make note of that, because that's another baby proofing biz nesting tip that I haven't heard mentioned before, which is to really build a list of people that you know, love, and trust that you can refer people to. And that's going to make your no's a lot easier, because it's still a give, and it's being generous by being like, hey, I'm not currently serving people in that capacity, but this person is, and this person is amazing, and you'll be in great hands. And that'll really help take any because again, then it's a great thing. It's a win-win for that person, and that person's going to remember you when it is time, and you do have more interest or capacity if and when that is. Then that'll come back around.
Totally. I actually had that on my email responder with Parker. So I did have like the out of office, and I was like, if you need another lawyer, like here is whatever. Like I just had that as an automatic resource for people right away.
That is smart. Okay. What else would I like to ask you, Jenna? So day to day, and now it's, again, it's a different time right now. We don't know how long things are going to be, however they are, and preschools are closed or different. And depending on which area you're in, currently in Houston and the area where I am, it's super intense right now at the highest level of whatever. So we're actually considering, okay, what does homeschooling look like? Bryson's going to be going into third grade. What does that look like? They have an online option as well with his school. So we might do that, but we're just looking at all these options and figuring out like, what is our ideal school year look like as we're transitioning to family of 5 and blah, blah, blah. So what does that look like for y'all? Like, what is your ideal mix of, obviously now with both kids at home, if that might be an indefinite thing, who knows? What does your ideal flow and day to day look like over there?
Yeah, well, we have decided we are not sending Parker back to school next year until things clear up. The school will be open, but we are not. So, for us, it is going to be very much figuring out a structure of who is with the baby and who is with Parker. As I'm now easing myself back into doing a lot more in business. So, obviously with Josie, like we're working on getting her a sleep schedule. Once we have a sleep schedule for her, that will dictate a whole lot in terms of, okay, one of us can have very intentional work time while the other one is with Parker. So since we're not sending him to school, we have a lot of Montessori type works and activities here at home. And he hasn't been in school since early March. So we've been trying to kind of week by week have different setups in terms of structure and in terms of a curriculum. I mean, quote unquote curriculum, he's 3.5. So, it is a lot for us learning through play. And I think that's just going to have to continue. And we're going to have to give ourselves a whole lot of grace in that there will probably not be a ton of learning, and it's going to just have to be like a ton of love and attention and play. And
that's it, dude. That's everything though. Like I've for real, like I'm in this zone and I'm reading about unschooling, for example, and I could give you all kinds of podcasts and books that I'm listening to and reading too, but it's like, really, that is the most valuable thing. And it's only in the last, 100 or 150 years of human history where we've actually tried to force and put the structure on it, So yeah, you're good. You're golden. It's a beautiful thing.
Right. I mean, I think that at this age too, I have to think about the fact that there are a lot of kids who don't go to school until kindergarten.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And that like they're totally fine and they're totally competent beings. And at this stage, what I can instill in Parker, which I think is so incredibly important, is security and love and family. And, you know, what a beautiful thing for a 3-year-old to fully experience his parents' attention and you know, so while I would love for him to be learning his letters and numbers and writing and you know, doing all of that, we can't get this time back. And you know, so we're just trying to embrace that. And there's a whole lot of chaos and a lot of tantrums and, you know, frustration, but also it's been a really, really wonderful bonding time for our family, especially like right before Josie was born, to have that time with Parker that we would not have had otherwise.
Yes, 100%. And that's the same thing we're going through over here too. The other night I was watching them. We have a pool here that was one of my things. I'm like, if we're moving from Hawaii to Texas, at the very least, we need to have a really cool backyard so that we can ease the transition. And so the boys were in the pool last night and I was just sitting there like, this is a really special gift that we've been given to be able to really like embrace this last season as a 4-pack, you know, I mean, she's here, but she's not on the outside yet. So it's like being able to embrace this season for exactly what it is. And again, conflict is inevitable, of course. And so some days some minutes they're fighting and some minutes they're being so sweet with each other. And I'm like, they're learning though. Right. And that was one of the things I was reading in this book called Free to Learn. I think the author's name is Peter Gray. I'll put a link in the show notes for anyone interested in learning or reading more about it. But it was just cool to talk about how the power of play with kids of different age groups, right? Because then the younger kids are learning the skills and things from the older kids, and the older kids are learning and practicing nurturing and mentorship and leadership and that kind of thing. And then that just continues throughout life, right? Because it's like when you think about school, it's all based on the pecking order of what grade are you in? Oh, if you're in 6th grade and I'm in 7th grade, I'm cooler than you. Whereas now we're all of our friends living on the internet. I don't even know how old my friends are, you know?
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's cool. It's actually really cool to learn and see the parallels in these kinds of conversations about learning through play. Cause I'm like, oh shoot, these are the conversations I'm having with my friends in our 30s, learning, like unlearning what you were saying about the work, and then do this and just follow this step-by-step thing. And it's like, oh, right. If they can actually really embody this and we cannot like squeeze and systemize that out of them, I wonder where they'll be, you know, when they're in their 30s. So yeah. Okay, cool. Oh, love it. Thank you for sharing everything that you've shared. Is there anything we haven't covered? Any final nugget or something that you want to share on the record with our fellow Naptime Empire Builder through the earbuds?
You know, just give yourself a whole lot of grace. Motherhood is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. It's also the hardest job I will ever have, but one that I am so eternally grateful for. And you have to find your tribe. I mean, I don't know what I would do without my mom friends. They keep me sane. They're there when you're like, how much dosage of Tylenol do I give my child? You know, it's like you just the silly little questions that you have, or like the craziness of motherhood when you just want to, you know, like scream your head off. So just finding your own tribe of people that are going to be there for you and support you and love you no matter what is so essential. So essential. And to just honestly, like, don't judge another mom. Don't judge other people for what they do, because I used to do that. And then I became a mom and I was like, oh, yep, definitely shouldn't have judged that person for that, because I'm going to do the same thing.
100%. Right. I'm like, the judgment that we put on ourselves, right? And that's what we're projecting. Because if they're doing something that we would judge ourselves for, then that's just the mirror of a reflection of like, oh, right. That goes back to point number 1, grace and a community, and just giving other people grace too, because we all need it. We're all learning as we go. Every new person that's born, even if it's the 3rd round, 5th round, 1st round, whatever it is, like this dynamic has never existed before.
Exactly.
Learning on the job. All right. And I'm going to put all the links and things in the show notes, but while we're still in audio form for people who don't actually feel like tapping to click over to the show notes, where can we find you online?
Amazing. So I live on Instagram. It's my favorite, at Jenna Jaffe, GenaJaffe. And my website is jennajaffe.com, where I have all of my legal stuff, as well as my mom blog and some fitness resources, as again, that's like my mental sanity saver.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Gena, for taking time out. Please tell Jordana hi, and thank you for doing her part on the other side.
Yeah.
All right. I hope y'all have a great day over there. We'll talk soon. Your homework for this episode, if you're up for it. If you're pregnant or you know someone who is, or someone who recently had a baby, even if it's you, use this conversation as inspiration to take time for a check-in. Check on your strong friends, as they say. Gena shared her experience with postpartum anxiety, some of her personal mental health savers, but I want to know, what are some of yours? Tag us on Instagram, post a screenshot. She's at Jenna Jaffe. I'm at Nikki Elledge Brown. And while you're here in your favorite podcasting app, I would so appreciate it if you would take 60 seconds to leave a rating and review. I read everyone and truly appreciate you taking the time. Helps more people find us in the book. All right, that's it for this time. Catch you in the next episode. This show may be over, but the conversation is just beginning. Head on over to naptimeempires.com/Facebook so you can join my free... Wait, did I say free? I meant priceless, rapidly growing community of Naptime Empire builders for deeper discussions, behind-the-scenes scoop, and of course, updates whenever I've got new stuff coming up for you. naptimeempires.com/Facebook. See you there.
See you next time. Thanks for listening.
Good job, buddy.